Yo, what's going on, fantasy football family? Welcome to another episode of Off the Line Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Eugene. I'm one of the hosts of the show. And if this is your first time listening to us, or if you're returning, we appreciate you giving us your time to, chop it up, talking fantasy football. You can find me on Twitter at Fantasy Genes. That's Genes. You can also find our official Twitter handle at Off the Line FF. We just on this fantasy football podcast, we just like talking fantasy football. Have a few jokes last as we talking, and hopefully, you can get some information from what we talking about and apply it to your squads as we get ready for the playoffs. Now, to my other host, Ike, what's going on? What's going on? What's popping?
What's good? What's good, people? I can be found on Twitter at just_Ike09. And just like Gene said, just follow the page on Twitter as well at Off the Line FF. But yeah, man, we're already in week 12. We already, we're gearing towards the fantasy playoffs, and I hope you guys have had successful seasons. I hope over the last 3 weeks that we've been doing the show, you've gotten some actionable information.
Yeah,
Hopefully, take your teams to the next level.
yeah.
You know what I'm
Or
saying? And
hit something on them player props.
hit something on the player props as well. Yeah, made a little cash along the way.
Yeah.
We have two teams on bye. We have the Chiefs and the Cardinals. So you guys don't have your DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray's and James Connors, and then you're on the other side, Tyreek Hill and obviously Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And speaking of which, they just played our Dallas Cowboys and they beat them
Mm,
19-9.
mm.
Unfortunately, yeah, I know it was a tough game to watch. If you were a Cowboys fan, just a frustrating game to watch. Just kind of seeing like how they performed on offense, it was just completely unacceptable on all levels. Kansas City's defense has been had for the most part this season, but unfortunately, Dak couldn't take advantage. He wasn't very good in the game. He had 3 turnovers, and he was kind of misfiring on passes over receivers' heads. Granted, he had a couple of drops and he didn't have a lot of help from his offensive line.
Just a couple.
I was being a little generous, but he had some drops, but that game in general, was probably the biggest disappointment from a fantasy football perspective and from a real life perspective because Fox gave them the kiss of death of deeming it America's Game of the Week, and that's two
Yep.
straight weeks that those America's Game of the Week have pretty much
Been
produced
duds.
duds.
Yeah.
So hopefully we were without Amari Cooper, and we were without CeeDee Lamb over the second half of the game, and he's probably not going to play on Thanksgiving, as is Cooper. Since he tested positive for COVID and he's unvaccinated, so it's an automatic 10-day absence there. But on the Chiefs side, Patrick Mahomes, he didn't throw any touchdown passes, and they didn't look like themselves as well. Like we thought they were quote unquote back from last week, but the Dallas defense, Micah Parsons was just a wrecking ball,
Yeah.
just causing havoc all over the place, and it
Yeah.
kind of made it difficult for Mahomes to really get into his groove like he did last week.
And they followed
Tyreek
the
Hill.
they followed
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
blueprint. They followed the blueprint, like play cover two shell and don't get beat deep. That's what they did. So
Yeah, a lot of Mahomes' passes were underneath, and
yeah.
obviously, you're the usual suspects for the Chiefs' offense. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce got the higher target shares. Tyreek Hill got a 30% target share. Travis Kelce got a 22% target share. So, those numbers, those peripheral numbers, were fine, but outside of that, man, there wasn't really much to speak of from a fantasy perspective in this game. It was
Nah.
ugly as defensive slugfest. 19 points versus 9 points. I mean, it was just bad. It was bad.
Yeah, I don't
But
got nothing to add to that game. I mean, I know one of my leagues I had the Mahomes and Tyreek stack. I didn't really
didn't really
didn't
produce
didn't
much.
di-
Wasn't
yeah
really
didn't hit
fruitful.
yeah didn't hit for nothing. So, but I mean, we go on to another game, a really good game, which was the Sunday night game in the second half. You had Justin Herbert or Jay Herbo.
Herbo, Herbo.
Jay Herbo go for almost 500 total yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, these are things that we hope to see. We were hoping to see throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Pittsburgh was lacking with some of their defensive talent, but I was glad to see, Jay Herbo take advantage of what was in front of him in terms of rushing wise, and then throwing wise. I mean, it's still a little conservative in terms of like the depth per target, but I mean, they moved the ball just fine.
He
I
was
mean, we would like, I mean, like we were used to last year in the beginning of this year, we would want to see him, throw deep, but I mean, he didn't have to, and he's still got a lot of yards. So,
Yeah, he was throwing some passes kind of down the field. He opened it up a little bit more this week.
yeah,
Obviously not as much as we would like. There was one pass I think in the second or third quarter he threw to Keenan Allen, and he just zipped it like through like two or three
I think it
windows.
was in the third. Yeah,
It
it
was
was a,
beautiful. It was beautiful.
yeah, yeah,
And it was off of. It wasn't. It was when he was flat-footed. He kind of hesitated a little bit and then just fling the ball in there into that hole. It was like a 25-yard pass. It was just some of the just a glimpse of some of the talent that Justin Herbert possesses. And then also in that same game, we don't want to we don't want to understate this, but Austin Eckler Four
yeah,
touchdowns. 4 touchdowns. I think he had 1 running or sorry, 1 receiving and 3 running,
yeah.
or you might have mixed it up 2 and 2, but, yeah, he's having a phenomenal season this year. He has a career high 13 touchdowns and a career high 573 rushing yards. And then, he's averaging 22.1, PPR points per game, and he's the PPR RB2 overall. So, that, that's an awesome performance. And then, one of the best things about his performance was after the game, he was quoted on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter of saying, "Hey, fantasy managers, let's run it back. Let's run it back
Yeah,
next
yeah,
week."
yeah. I saw that. I appreciate him. I mean, he is on a weekly fantasy show. I can't remember what the woman's name is, but I mean, he
Liz
definitely,
Loza?
yeah. So he
Yeah.
definitely knows what's going on in terms of fantasy. So I appreciate him. Always showing love for the people that own him wherever they have him in leagues. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's pretty dope to see. And NFL players, they're not really obligated to really give a damn about our fantasy teams.
nope.
But it's I support both sides of that equation. Like people who on Twitter that just bash certain players for not performing, they deserve to to get talked bad to by the players, saying I don't give a shit about your fantasy team. And on the other hand, you have players like Austin Eckler who actually care about fantasy, who are actually invested in fantasy. They
Yeah,
have their own fantasy squads
yeah,
to contend with, even if they drafted themselves. So it's
yeah.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Another player that showed out, did some good things was your boy Cam Newton. He had 235 yards of total offense, two passing scores, one rushing. He was trying to get the offense going a little bit. I mean, DJ got 5 for 50 and a touchdown. CMC did CMC things with the 10 for 59 rushing and then the 7 for 60 and a touch. And the touchdown pass out, Cam did throw a dime
He sure
to
did.
him down in the middle of the field. So it was a
Yeah.
nice, 25, 30-yard touchdown pass.
It's a
Um,
really difficult throw. Really difficult throw.
yeah,
Right over the defender's head. It was a nice one.
yeah. And I mean, like I said last week, these 2 weeks that he was going to be starting he started the first week off right this past Sunday because I mean Washington is pretty much the friendliest defense towards your offense. So I
Yep.
mean we would have wanted him to do more, but for what it's worth, I mean he finished QB6, so he
Yeah,
did
the
do
QB6. I mean,
some good things.
he's still a QB1. Yeah,
Yeah,
obviously, yeah. There are some things that they probably could have done a little bit better.
like
Yeah.
win.
Well, hey, whether they win or not, that doesn't really matter to us in fantasy. It's just
That's
what
true.
what they produce on
That's
the
true.
field is the most important thing there.
That's true.
Speaking of a team that actually won from one running quarterback to another running quarterback, how about the performance of Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts is
Mhm.
he's got the Eagles humming right now on offense. He looked really really good running the ball. He had 18 carries for 69 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And on the season he has 45 rushing first downs / touchdowns, and that's third behind Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry. Like
Ooh.
that is, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive. And amongst players that are in their second year, he's set. Among players in their second year, he's second in rushing yards. So Jonathan Taylor obviously leads that category, but Jalen Hurts is number 2 with 606 yards rushing. So
Hmm.
he's killing it right now. And there was this one play where he did a read option, and then he ran to the right and completely
Oh my
dead legged
gosh.
the defender and cut in
Pray for his
reverse field,
ankle.
broke his ankle, reverse field, and just snapped on him and
Yeah.
ran for
Pray
another
for that
touchdown.
pray for that DL's ankle, man.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
that guy's ankles is done. And I think that was like a 20-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Jalen Hurts is the number 1 overall fantasy quarterback. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Over Mahomes, over Brady, he is the number 1 fantasy quarterback.
Oh
He
man.
is he is as automatic as it gets from the fantasy quarterback position. He is the proverbial fantasy football cheat code. This year, and his schedule is just super easy. He doesn't really have a tough defense the rest of the way. I think this week they have the Giants, and they're pretty bad stopping the run, and then they have
Yep.
the Jets after that before they head into the bye in week 14. But
Mm-hmm.
the fantasy playoff schedule is as follows: the Washington football team, the New York
Blessings.
Giants, and then the
Blessings.
Washington football team.
Come raining down on me. Blessings.
So 2 out of the 3 weeks in the fantasy playoffs, he plays Washington. Like that is as good as it gets for for Jalen Hurts. So if you have
That's
Jalen Hurts and
ooh.
you're sitting pretty in the playoffs, I like your chances of bringing home a championship, and he's going to definitely be one of the leaders in the clubhouse to bring it home
Definitely,
for you.
definitely, and we'll come back to Jalen later on the show for a good question to be asked.
Yes, sir.
Um, but another person that started with J, Justin Jettas Jefferson, man,
For the Vikings,
he
yeah, man.
that young man showed out again when they needed him. 8 for 169 and 2 touchdowns. Wide receiver 5 for the season. 11 games with 100 plus receiving yards since his rookie year last year, which is tied for Devontae Adams for the most in that span. PFF has him graded as the 5th highest graded wide receiver overall the last 4 weeks. Uh, you know, I know the Eagles fans probably are hurt because they keep just seeing this dude on ESPN every week doing something crazy, and all they have to look towards on the right side is your boy Jalen Rager with 23 catches and 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's
All
it.
season, all season. Yeah. So let me repeat that. So Justin Jefferson had 8 catches, 169 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this last game. Jalen Rager has 23 catches, 170 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the season. So yeah,
Ooh.
Eagles fans,
Yeah,
look away, please.
yeah.
Look away.
Your front office, man, they got to do better, man. They got to do better. But let's hope they make some right choices this coming draft season. They got 3 first rounders locked and loaded, so let's see if they
Yeah,
make some right decisions.
yeah,
And then going to another wide receiver, a young wide receiver, Elijah Moore. Uh, finally, finally, we see him do something like game breaking type stuff.
yes,
And sure enough, is Mr. Statue Joe Flacco that doesn't die is the guy that quote unquote unlocks this dude.
yeah,
8 for 141, 1 touchdown. He almost had 3.92 yards per route ran. He hasn't even sniffed anything close to that this season.
yeah,
So it's good to see him like do some like major work versus Miami. I mean, they almost squeaked out the win, but if you were patient, then I mean, I'm sure you've been happy with Elijah these last 3 to 4 weeks with him on your roster. So, but Zach Wilson is coming back. Um, but
yeah.
we'll that'll be another question we'll get to a little bit later also. So
Yeah. Zach Wilson coming back may or may not be a good thing for Elijah Moore, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. And I know Elijah Moore was drafted in most leagues around the 8th to 10th round, and you didn't really see much from him early on in the season. You might have dropped him, you might have picked him back up, picked him back up, dropped him again, picked him back up. And hopefully, this last stretch, you picked him back up. You put him in your lineup, and you've seen, over the last 4 weeks, I think he's scored a touchdown for four straight games.
Three
So
straight
he
games. He
three
has
straight
four in three
games.
games. Yeah.
Yeah, four touchdowns in the last three. So he's been producing for you. Speaking of a guy that's scoring touchdowns, we can pivot to from a wide receiver to a running back in Cincinnati, Joe Mixon. He
Mm.
has 6 touchdowns in the last 4 games, and the last 2 games he scored multiple touchdowns in each. He's quietly the RB4 on the season, and he's just coming off of another game. Had 30 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's quietly putting together a pretty consistent year, and a lot of people thought he was too volatile, too injury prone. But he's proven all the doubters wrong, and over the last 5 weeks, he has four top 5 finishes. So that's pretty consistent from him.
Yeah, and this is all going towards all doing this with the O line that's really not even average.
Yeah,
And I mean, and they definitely needed him this past week because Joe Burrow was not good at all.
he was under
Um,
siege too. Under
yeah,
siege.
he was he was either eating the turf or running out of bounds, trying not to eat the turf. So um, definitely good to see Joe Mixon do his thing.
Yeah, there was a point in time that I put eyes on this game. I was out watching the Cowboys game, and then obviously they had other games on different screens.
Yeah.
And I saw this Bengals game on the screen, and I saw when Joe Burrow got sacked. One of his, I don't know, 4 or 5 times he got sacked. He started holding his knee a little bit, so that's a little concerning. So he was taking a little bit of a beating in that game, and
Yeah.
so hopefully that's something minor, and but continue to ride Joe Mixon, man, and he's going to continue to bring your team a lot of success.
Yeah. And then the last person we want to touch on is this Josh Allen roller coaster. We weren't going up, we were going down the roller coaster this week.
Yeah,
He looked pressed. They got down early and just like I don't know, he just never really got comfortable. Really two bad interceptions that he threw. One of
I
them
think
was
he
in the
fumbled.
red.
Didn't he fumbled as well?
Yeah, he fumbled too. Just I mean, he did throw 2 touchdowns, but he did have 3 turnovers. Just the offense just didn't look good. Um, Somehow the Colts were getting pressure with rushing 4, 5, and this is like and the Bills have a above average offensive line, so it was just surprised to see them do this. Another bad performance after just coming back off just the previous week, thinking that they figured something out and just you just see this. So, and I mean, this was against the Colts defense that really isn't good. So,
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
they
just
they've been
overall,
giving up a lot of points and a lot of
yeah,
yards to different.
yeah. So, I mean, just overall, just you can still be patient with the main players in this offense. That running back room, though, I don't think I want to play with it because at this point, I I don't know what's going on. Like Matt Breida again is getting touches, man. So I don't know. I don't want any parts of that backfield anymore, man.
Yeah, but a backfield that you do want a part of is the Colts backfield. And that's the biggest reason why Josh Allen was pressing on Sunday, because he was trying to chase points. Chase points scored by our fantasy MVP of the week, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, what can you say, man? 185 yards rushing and 4 rushing touchdowns. Added another one through the air. 3 catches, 19 yards, and another touchdown. His averages since week four, he's
Talk
averaging
to me.
22 touches,
Okay.
121 yards,
Okay.
just shy of 2 touchdowns, and 3 catches and 34 yards, and a whopping 27.4 PPR points per game. Like,
Ooh-wee.
this guy is on a tear. He's just been balling. He finally passed Derrick Henry for the NFL rushing lead, over 1,100 yards. Derrick Henry's been down for 3 weeks and still,
Yeah,
it's just
that's let you know what he was doing, man. So
yeah. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor, he's one of 4 players in NFL history with over 100 yards and a touchdown in 8 straight games within the same season. So yeah, he's on another level right now, and he's going to continue to. He has a tough test this week against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's run defense has always been pretty stout, especially over the last several years. So we're going to see if how matchup proof Jonathan Taylor is. I mean, he's showing he is matchup proof because Buffalo's defense, prior to this game, they hadn't really been giving up much. They were
yeah,
probably the stingiest defense across all categories. Quarterback, running back, receivers, they didn't yield much defensively.
I think they
So
were the lowest scoring the defense that gives it the least amount of points per game. I think they were like 15, I think. But I mean, Jonathan Taylor pretty much beat that before this first half was over with. So
yeah,
uh, I mean, going from our MVP of the week to our least valuable player of the week, a guy that hopefully we don't ever see again play, um, is Tim Boyle. Hopefully he's like just skip over him if your starting quarterback is hurt, because Jesus, like 15 for 23, 77 yards, 2 interceptions. Like the offense literally had no hope. Luckily, DeAndre Swift was like just put on my back. Like they almost won the game somehow, but this guy sucks. Never start him again. He just was just pissing down his leg the whole game. So just don't.
yeah,
And also a notable player was Baker in the same game. He sucked as well. 2 ugly interceptions um, that kept this really trash Lions team in the game. Like it just didn't make any sense.
yeah. If you're at home and you're a double digit point favorite, and you're not beating the Lions, you're barely beating the Lions just by 3 points. Yeah, that's an indictment on your offense not putting up enough points, and their defense has been bad all year. The Lions, they give up a lot of yards rushing, and Nick Chubb did his thing. Through the air,
Mhm.
they give up a lot as well. But Baker just couldn't take advantage of that, and he was if Tim Boyle wasn't so bad, Baker would definitely have been the worst quarterback on the field. Absolutely,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Now let's get off of that. Let's get off these terrible quarterbacks. Let's get to our favorite segment of the show, cap or no cap.
yes,
For
sir.
the people that are the first time listeners and don't might not know what cap means. Basically, cap is another word for lying. So let's say, okay, I don't have any glasses on. Ike would say,
That's I don't know. That's just that's such a juvenile example. It's Cap. It's Cap. You definitely have glasses on.
So hopefully you get the meaning of that. That was pretty simple. But all right, so
Wait, one
our
second.
first,
Let me
go
close my
ahead.
door really quick.
All right. But yes, this is a good segment of the show where we list out, we give a scenario or a statement, and then we just kind of Ike will give his perception on the said statement. So this first one is Jalen Hurts holds the QB1 position for the end of the season. Cap or no cap?
Gonna say no cap, man. It's basically because of what I outlined earlier in the show of his remaining schedule. His remaining schedule is super soft, and he's going to continue to score points. And the Eagles are going to be pushing for a playoff spot, and potentially the division, depending on what happens with Dallas. If they continue to drop these games. Just kidding. They're not going to drop the division.
I was about to say that was cap.
That's cap exactly.
That's not a
Exactly.
juvenile. Yeah, a
That's cap.
non-juvenile.
But no. In all seriousness, I mean, they're going to be looking for they're looking for a wild card spot. They're definitely in the hunt, so they're going to be playing their starters all the way throughout the rest of the season. And with the easy schedule they have coming up, Jalen Hurts he's just been a 25 point a game player all season. So I don't see how that can't continue.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I mean, he gets the Giants, then he has the Jets before bye, and then Washington twice, and then the
The
Giants
Giants,
again in between that. Bro, yeah. Give me everything that he's serving to these defenses, man. I'll take my
correct.
chances with him. So I think that's no cap also. All right. The second one, Elijah Moore is unlocked. Cap or no cap?
He's unlocked. It's no cap. It's no cap. He's done it with multiple quarterbacks, right? He did it with Flacco. He was producing with Flacco. He produced with Josh Johnson. He produced with Mike White. It just seems like whoever's throwing him the ball, at least over the last couple of weeks, he's been balling. He has one touchdown. At least one touchdown in the last 3 games. His week 11 usage, he was in on 80% of the snaps. He was on around 81% of the time, and he had 11 targets, which is good for a 28% target share. So, I know Zach Wilson's coming back, and we don't know who he's going to target. And hopefully they don't go back to that goofy ass receiver rotation once Zach Wilson's in the game again. But right now, I mean, you have to like what you're seeing from Elijah Moore and his peripherals and his usage because he's getting the targets, he's getting the yards, he's getting the playing time now. It took them long enough to realize that, hey, Elijah Moore is our best player. Let's get him the ball. Let's put the ball in his hands and let him see let us see what he can do. And he's producing. So
Yeah.
he's averaging just shy of 21 points per game over his last 4 weeks. So yeah, just keep feeding him.
Yeah. I hesitantly say no cap because I mean Zach Wilson up until that point struggled for whatever reason. The play calling looks a little different.
Yeah,
They're getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands instead of him. So when Zach was in there the first 4 or 5 weeks before the bye, um, they were running longer routes. But in this particular game, this game on Sunday, they did rotate 6 wide receivers, but it wasn't as disrespectful as it been the last couple of weeks where they had pretty much your main three. You had Corey Davis that was on the most snaps. Then you had Elijah Moore that was in the second most snaps and second most routes ran, and then you had your Jamison Crowder, and then you had the Jeff Smith that just popped up once. You had Braxton Berrios playing 10 snaps, and
Keelan
then
Cole.
Keelan Cole also played like 12, 13 snaps. But the good thing is that you saw your top 3 wide receivers play majority of snaps, and they have majority of the targets, which is what we like to see. So hopefully, your guy Zach Wilson can continue this.
Yep.
Our last one is a little different. Is the Browns extend Baker Mayfield? Cap or no cap?
Mm. Well, as strong as I feel about this statement, or about this topic, about how bad Baker has been, I'm definitely going to say, the Browns do not extend Baker, so that is definitely no cap, or is it cap?
No, it'd be cap.
It'll be cap. It'll be cap. Yeah, it'll be cap because I just don't see how you commit to this long term. Just for I came across a stat on Pro Football Focus on Twitter. The Browns have the lowest catchable pass rate on targets to wide receivers deemed open or wide open. Let me say that again. The Browns have the lowest catchable pass rate on targets to wide receivers deemed open or wide open. And who's been playing quarterback for the Browns? Baker Mayfield.
I thought it was an OBJ issue.
I thought that's what the media convinced us of, right? I mean, OBJ doesn't fit with Baker's style, right? And, all this crap, all these excuses that we've heard about how, about what Baker's been dealing with or whatever the case may be. He's just not it, man. Like he's an average quarterback at best, below average quarterback at best, and he's being paraded around and protected like he's above average and serviceable. Yeah, I mean they had a pretty decent playoff run last year. They beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh last year, and that's probably earning him a lot more favors than what we would normally see in this situation. But this year, what he's putting on, throughout his career, what he's put on tape. I mean, you can't commit to paying that man 40 million plus a year because that's what the market's going to be going for. And Browns fans and Browns faithful, they have quite the decision on their hands. I don't think you can pay this guy. I mean, at worst, they can probably franchise him to see, if he magically, improves in year 5 or year 4. What year is he in?
He's in year
Yeah,
4,
he's in
so
year
he'll
4. He's
be
in year 4
yeah.
right now. So if he improves in year 5, then maybe they'll extend him after they franchise him. But as of right now, man, I don't see how any way that they can extend him.
Well, they
It's
still
just
have that fit. I think he gets that 5th-year option, so that gives him another year. I just know when people bring up like your first round quarterbacks, this is the time where you extend them. So
yeah.
he's gonna be caught. I think he might be caught in that Mitch Trubisky realm where they're like, man, I don't know. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
Uh, and I know on his side, they're definitely gonna be pressing like, hey, bro, y'all need to pay me my money. Um,
But he doesn't have any leverage. He just doesn't have he doesn't have as much leverage as he thinks. Now I
yeah,
know that if you don't have a quarterback in this league, then you're pretty much screwed. But
yeah,
you know I feel like they can do better than Baker. They can probably find a free agent in some way, in some capacity that would produce more than him. Um,
yeah. I mean, I want to say, I definitely want to say Cap, and they don't extend him, but like I always look on the other side, like, okay, if you don't extend them, like, then who is the other like who's the option, like who's the guaranteed option that you're gonna get? Because you're gonna be looking around, asked out like Carolina, like Denver, that's been searching for what two we're going on 2 years now for a quarterback, 3 years, even probably since they drafted Drew Lock. I don't even think they believed in him when they drafted him.
yeah,
So that's the only thing. Like if you take this chance, yeah, he's average at best, maybe, but you're gonna go out in the wild and try to find your replacement while you got the stacked ass roster on top of that.
that's the thing. Like, they're off. Their team is built off of their line, their elite lines,
Yeah,
offensive, defensive lines. The running backs, their running game is elite.
yeah,
And they obviously they've been banged up in the secondary this year, but their defense overall, at least on paper, is solid. All they're missing is consistent quarterback play. If Baker was more consistent,
yeah,
we'd probably be having a different conversation about the Browns present day. But as of now, I mean, since Baker has been so mediocre and he's been missing passes and blaming the fans on not being quiet and pointing the finger. Now he did take accountability for how he played this past week, saying he played like shit, and that's just kind of preaching to the choir, right? But um, it's an interesting situation that the Browns find themselves in, and I would hate to be a Browns fan right now, and especially a Baker apologist. I would hate to be a Baker apologist because you can't really defend him. You
Mm-mm.
just can't.
Nah,
Based on
nah,
everything that you've seen, I mean, you got rid of what you thought was the problem in OBJ. Clearly, he wasn't the problem. Clearly, he was actually getting open, and clearly Baker wasn't hitting him. And now OBJ's gone, and he's still not hitting open receivers. I think
yeah,
one of the interceptions that he threw this past Sunday was just so bad. It was a play action fake, a play action pass to, and then Jarvis Landry was like wide open over the middle, just sailed it over his head, like completely air mailed it. He said his
yeah.
feet and everything. Like he was so confident in the throw, and he just air mailed it. It was so bad. Uh, but yeah, you just see stuff like that. You just scratch your head, like, wow, I just can't believe this guy's. And then he has all those commercials, like he's just one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and it just I don't know. Yeah, there's his agent's done a phenomenal job marketing him, but he needs to his on field play needs to needs to match up with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Them commercials rub a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
But um, it was a good different type of question because usually we ask fantasy specific questions, but I mean this is still fantasy related, but it's good to kind of try to talk outside of like the present day. You want to look towards the future. So
Yeah.
um, all right, now on to waiver wire pickups. I think this week is a little scant in my opinion for good options. But
Yeah.
regardless, there are some options available if needed uh, for the ones that have the two teams that are on bye. So I'm gonna hit quarterbacks first. The first couple I got. First one is Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he did have a good week versus Tennessee somehow.
Two rushing
Didn't see that
touchdowns.
coming. Yeah, two rushing touchdowns, and guess what? He gets to play the Jets this week, which is one of the worst defenses uh, defending the run, defending anything. So
And what have
uh,
we told you guys the last 3 weeks? Fade the Jets. Fade the Jets until they show us that they can stop people.
Facts. So Tyrod Taylor is my first quarterback if you need one. My second one, if he's still available, is Mr. Cam Newton, Superman. You saw what he did this past week against one of the worst defenses. I think he finished like we said before, he finished quarterback 6. Um, so and again he gets to play. I mean, this week gets to play Miami. Miami is another defense that's been a little forgiving to offenses. So be another one. I think one of his last good weeks before they go on bye, and then they got I think they have a tough schedule coming out of the bye, going towards the fantasy playoffs. But if you need a quarterback, Cam Newton's another one you can go and grab.
Yeah, yeah, and on the running backs, the first couple we want to mention, these are just handcuffs. When you're making a playoff run, pick up Sony Michelle. He's the backup for Darrell Henderson in LA for the Rams. And obviously, you want to pick up Alexander Madison for any Dalvin Cook owners for Minnesota. We've seen Dalvin Cook get banged up late in the season. A couple of years. So it's good to kind of have Madison there, just because they pretty much use him the same exact way that they use Dalvin Cook each time he's in the lineup. So yeah, just expect a lot of volume if something were to happen to Dalvin Cook. And then also just for this week, maybe for the next couple of weeks, pick up Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. Michael Carter is out with an ankle injury. This is for the Jets. He is out with an ankle injury. It might be a high ankle sprain, so he could be out for a couple of weeks. Tevin Coleman, he did had a 33% rush share. He was a primary rusher. Ty Johnson only had 7%, and he played mostly on passing downs. And that was kind of what Ty Johnson was used for throughout the season, anyways, in the passing game. So we'll see what happens when Zach Wilson comes back at the quarterback position to see if they throw passes to the running backs, like they were throwing earlier in the season with the other quarterbacks, Mike White in particular. And then a couple more running backs to touch on. Dontrell Hilliard for the Titans. Adrian Peterson got cut this week. Or today, actually, got cut today. Dontrell Hilliard did have the most touches last week for the Titans, had the most snaps, and had a 19% target share. It's not your ideal backfield situation. You don't know who it's going to be from a week-to-week basis. Jeremy McNichols was out with a concussion, I believe. He might be back this week.
Mm-hmm.
So at worst, you're going to be looking at Hilliard, McNichols, and Deontay Foreman. As a three-headed rushing attack, and those types of backfields you want to avoid at all cost. But in this particular case, since you don't know what's going to happen, I would pick up one of those guys, and hopefully one of them hits. And then finally, you want to pick up Matt Breida for the Bills. He's paced the backfield in touches. He paced the backfield in touches this week, and then the prior week he led the Bills the Bills backfield in fantasy points. I feel like he just gives them more juice overall than Devin Singletary and Zach Moss do. He might be the best running back on that team because he's explosive. I mean, look, it's not hyperbole. I mean, it's we haven't seen much from Zach Moss. We haven't seen much from Devin Singletary. Like those guys are just, they're just treading water. They kind of need something. They kind of need another dimension to the offense since Josh Allen, the Josh Allen experience, continues to give us a lot of high highs and low lows. They need some sort of balance there, right? So I think Matt Breida would be a good guy to at least stash to see how things shake out, and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. For wide receivers and tight ends, the first one I believe would be Cedric Wilson if he's available, just because Cooper is going to be out again, and potentially CD Lamb. Um, the Cowboys, they would he would be the number two for the Cowboys with Gallup being number one. This past week he was tied for second wide receivers in snaps and in targets. Only Schultz and Gallup had more than him. So, I mean, if Lamb is out, then definitely look to pick him up for this game versus the Raiders. Also, you can look to get MBS, which is the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Um, if Lazard is out again, then I would definitely look to get him just because he generally runs the second most routes, gets targeted the second most when Lazard is out behind Devontae Adams. This past week he had 8 targets, which was second most routes, and then he had 4 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown, including a 75 yard touchdown
75
pass.
yards. Yep.
Yeah, he's usually the go route guy. So definitely he's hit or miss, boom or bust. If your lineup needs it, then this could be somebody you can look to get. In terms of tight ends is really, really scarce. Um, you can look to get Austin Hooper for the Cleveland Browns. A bunch of the wide receivers are hurt. And Austin Hooper has been targeted. He was targeted 24. He had a target share of 24% on Sunday and then 15% the week before that. So, I mean, for a tight end, that's elite for a tight end. So,
Yeah, it's pretty decent. Yeah, it's
he's
pretty
on
good.
the field a lot. So, this would be somebody you can target for your week if you need somebody. All right, now on to matchups that we like to attack. Um, other words, aka barbecue chicken. If you do not know what barbecue chicken means, basically, if you watch the Inside the NBA preview show with Shaq and Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, Shaq, one of his sayings that stuck was whenever he saw a matchup that was like the offensive player can just go and just destroy. You just call it barbecue chicken alert.
Do
Go and
whatever he wants.
go eat whatever you want. Is all buffet, man. So
Mama's cooking.
yeah,
Mama's cooking.
and
It's
it so happens.
and it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving's in a
and it's
couple days, so
Thanksgiving. You can go get your mama's biscuits, your sweet potatoes, whatever you want. You can go get it.
yams.
So, so this first matchup that I like is Debo Samuel versus the Vikings. The Vikings give up the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. As you can see, the last few weeks, Debo has been placed everywhere on the field and has been unstoppable.
Yep.
So this is a over and under of 48 points. So they're expecting this matchup to be a lot of points scored. And in San Francisco, if they're going to be scoring points, it's going to be going through Debo. So
Mm-hmm.
you can go and collect him if you have him, start him, no questions asked.
Hell, play him in DFS. Play him
Yeah,
in
play him
DFS as
D.
well.
Yep, exactly. And then my second one is Tom Brady versus the Colts. The Colts, they allow the fourth most fantasy points to the QB position. Tampa Bay is rated the number one offense in the league per DVOA. And also this game is a 51 and a half over under. So if we're expected to see a lot of points, then Tom Brady is definitely going to be throwing the ball to get those points. So
Yeah. Yep. A couple that I have, Brandon Cooks versus the Jets. Earlier we did mention Tyrod Taylor. Again, we're just going to continue to hammer the Jets, fade the Jets in any way, shape, or form. They are last in past DVOA, and they're just coming off a game where they allowed Tua to throw for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns. Waddle had 65 yards receiving, and then something called a Matt Collins had 72 yards receiving. So they all had good games. And overall, from a fantasy points perspective, this is the sixth best matchup for wide receivers. And then and then another one, we have Stefan Diggs on Thursday night, Thanksgiving night against New Orleans. This is part of the Josh Allen experience. They up and down, up and down. But Stephon Diggs had a good game last week. He had 2 touchdowns. And New Orleans is the fifth best matchup for wide receivers. He may see a lot of Marshawn Lattimore, but he does get beat on occasion. We have seen him kind of give up a lot of big plays. He gave up some even last week to Devonta Smith, the rookie from Philadelphia. So Stephon Diggs is more than capable of kind of breaking that open. And and Stephon Diggs is pretty famous for the last time he played New Orleans having that Minnesota
Mm,
Miracle, that
yeah,
61-yarder down the sideline. So
yeah.
Stephon Diggs is a pretty good matchup, a pretty good bet this week to score a lot of fantasy points.
Oh yeah, and the last one that I have is our boy Dalton Schultz, tight end for the Cowboys. Uh, the Thanksgiving 3:30 game versus the Raiders. The Raiders allowed the third most points to the tight end position, and like we said before, Cooper's going to be out and possibly Lamb. So Dalton Schultz is going to be used early and often, and I'm sure the Raiders are probably going to have that headhunter. Abrams guarding him, and he can't guard a soul. So that's gonna be easy work.
He couldn't cover a
So
pillow, couldn't cover a
yeah,
pillow with a pillowcase.
yeah. So that's gonna be easy work, and that game's a 50.5 over under. So it's gonna be a lot of points scored in that one also.
Yep.
And finally, we're gonna be talking player props. Player props. Um, uh, we've seen over time, especially these last 2 years in the fantasy space, that uh, we use player props. Player props can be used in terms of setting getting a gauge of where a said player is going to do for the set for whatever week, uh, and you can apply those player props to your fantasy rosters, and also if you like gambling a little bit, you can make some money off of it. But in a state like Texas, where we don't have uh, rights to gambling, we can get our skin in the game using an app called Prize Picks. Prize Picks allows you to parlay player props for money. So we like to go through some of those that we liked, and hopefully hit on some, make some money. So my first one is Dallas Goddard over 44.5 receiving yards versus the New York Giants. Dallas Goddard is the tight end for the Eagles. He has seen a 27% target share since week 7. So basically, when after Ertz got traded, uh, this is what Goddard's been averaging, at least 43 yards in all those games. But in week 10, he got hurt. He got concussed with that first quarter versus Denver. So basically, every game he's almost 30% target share. He's their number one, pretty much their number. He's between him and Devontae Smith for the number one target in Philly. So I like that versus the Giants. And then my second one is Josh Jacobs, running back for Oakland Las Vegas Raiders, 16.5 receiving yards over the Dallas Cowboys versus the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving 3:30. Um, Basically after the week 8 bye, he's had 4 receptions for 19 yards, 5 receptions for 20 yards, and 5 receptions for 24 yards, which is a 16% target share, which is really good for a running back. So I'm glad they're finally using him to what he can do, which is catch the ball. So
Yeah.
I think he'll be able to get to this number.
Yeah, a couple ones that I have: David Montgomery over 72.5 rush yards for versus Detroit. This is the running back for the Chicago Bears, and this is going to be on Thanksgiving. They're going to be missing Justin Fields, and they may be down Allen Robinson. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it back with that hamstring injury. But nonetheless, Detroit, they've been, as we touched on before, they've been pretty bad all year. They are 29th in rush DVOA. Last week they gave up 130 yards to Nick Chubb, and then the week before they gave up 105 to Najee Harris. So they've been giving up a lot of yards, most of the season. And then David Montgomery is more than capable of breaking that 72 and a half rushing number. And they're probably going to lean more on the run game with Andy Dalton at the helm. And I think the one game that I think Andy Dalton played with David Montgomery, I think was week 1 against the Rams. I think he had nearly 100 yards rushing. And so that's one thing that we can, effectively count on in that regard. And then another prop that I had was Elijah Moore, our guy that we talked about earlier, over 43 and a half receiving yards against the Texans. That number seems very, very low. He's gone over this number in 4 straight games. And he's had at least 67 yards in 3 of the last 4. And again, we've drawn the conclusion that he's been pretty much unlocked, and we're going to be seeing a lot of big plays from this guy, each and every week. Now, obviously, that remains to be seen with Zach Wilson coming back, but I have more confidence that finally, we're in week 12. I don't think they revert back to that bullshit that we saw, the bullshit offense that we saw earlier in the season when they were just rotating receivers and they weren't sure what they had in them, which should have been obvious from the jump because he got a lot of buzz out of training camp and he was the best player in training camp. So hopefully, the latest usage continues for Elijah Moore, and I think he just goes over this number pretty easily. He might even have like a long catch of like 44 yards in this game because the Texans defense they've been bad as well. So
yeah, I'm gonna parlay some of these and see what it hits for. I know last week we were 2-1. I know we had Hollywood Brown, but he didn't play. The Justin Fields didn't hit. He got knocked out the game early, so
I don't even think that one would have hit anyways because he was 4 of 11 for like 79 yards.
Which is also true.
When he left,
Yeah.
I think in the third quarter, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't gonna. I don't think he was gonna come close to that number. But you never know what happens in the fourth quarter, though, right? So, but at least he was pacing to not hit that number.
Yeah, I feel good about these ones this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're at the end of the show. Another week, but we need to get ready for week 12. Hopefully, y'all are getting ready for your playoff pushes. You got anything left to say for the people?
No, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hopefully you guys can get a W in week 12. Again, just we're gearing up towards the playoffs. Most of the trade deadlines have already passed. So if you had some players that you had on your mind to go target for trades, hopefully it's maybe your league has a little bit of a later trade deadline, and you can probably target some of these guys like Elijah Moore, and you can probably target a guy like Jalen Hurts. Maybe somebody like DJ Moore, some of the or DeAndre Swift or Joe Mixon. These guys have been producing. Maybe you can try to give a couple of assets to get some of these guys. But if not, then ride with who you got, and hopefully you guys can just keep the momentum going into the playoffs. But again, just follow us on Twitter. Follow Gene at Fantasy Genes. And follow me at just_IGO9, and then follow the show at Off the Line FF.
Yeah, like the content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, share with your friends. Like you said, you can find us on Twitter. You can find our beautiful faces on YouTube. Just search Off the Line Fantasy Football channel. Subscribe. Leave comments below. Let us know how we doing.
He's ugly. I'm beautiful.
You can also find us on all streaming platforms like Apple, Google Podcasts. Just search under Destination Devi. We're happy to talk to you good people each and every week. Be safe, have fun with your family, enjoy Thanksgiving football. Until then, be safe and go get some W's.
We out.